What's up, my loves? This is Paige with Pages of Paige. Actually, it's Ash, obviously. But I'm here today on Paige's channel to read 1-star reviews of my favorite books. So Paige has curated a list of 1-star reviews, just stuff that she thought would be more entertaining for me to read. I've tried to avoid some of them while she was curating the list. A couple of them I'm just like, nah! But time to go through the list. The 3 books I believe she's picked for me are Priory of the Orange Tree, Clara and the Sun, and Name of the Wind. So these 3 books are some of my favorite reads from the last couple of years. Definitely, I'm gonna say a lot. Sorry, editing Paige. I'm looking forward to seeing the reviews she's come up with. There is a lot of pages. Oh my god.
There's 7.
Let's get into the meat of the show. Starting with Priory. So Priory of the Orange Tree had 136,000 reviews, with 1% of them being 1 star, which is pretty good. It's 1,681 people really didn't like it. Let's have a look. Priory of the Orange Tree is plastered all over Goodreads and seems to have been heralded as the next big thing in fantasy. It's been given the Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings label, and although I should know better and stay away from anything tagged with deserves to be as big as Game of Thrones, sometimes I'm just a sucker for hype. Very wordy. Namely, the amount of characters in history, more characters in one book than 4 of the Wheel of Time books, and lack of threat from evil dragons, where they don't feel the Dark One from the Wheel of Time, who you believe will cause bloody murder when he awakes. It was tame. Lastly is the Game of Thrones references. The worlds apart, bordering on an insult towards the brilliant complex story GRRM created. I-class Priory of the Orange Tree is young adult. Needless to say, I'm disappointed. I have to say, Wheel of Time was one of the most boring fantasy series I have ever read. It, to me, was the epitome of slow. It took 7 books to get anywhere, and you're saying that Priory is, like, yes, it has more characters in one book than 4 of the Wheel of Time books? Yeah, but it got nowhere. In 4 books. 4 books that got nowhere. In 1 book, it had a beginning, middle, and end. Good job. Good job, reviewer. This is my opinion, obviously. Next. Okay, Paige has summarized this review. A bloated, leaden behemoth lacking in any originality, character development, engaging plot, or good writing. If anyone compares this to The Lord of the Rings or A Game of Thrones, throw this book at their heads. Maybe it will knock some sense into them. Okay. I fully admit that I'm in a cranky mood because I wasted so much time reading such an awful, boring, cliched book. This is one of those cases where I wonder if I read the same book as everybody else did, because what I just read bears no resemblance to the book that people are gushing about. This individual actually gave an essay on their review, and Paige is impressed. Paige has informed me that some of these reviews have been like a 10,000 word fucking essay on like how bad these books are, or for what reason these books are bad. And look, if you're gonna compare Priory to Lord of the Rings, like in 400 pages of Lord of the Rings, we had so much walking and nothing else. It was Walking Simulator, the book. But I love Lord of the Rings. But it is Walking Simulator, the book. Like, they don't do much else apart from travel from destination to destination and chat and build the world. And yes, the first 150 pages of Priory are pretty slow. I will admit that. It's like, spoiler alert, like, the first dragon finally shows up. Oh shit, it took this long to get there, but okay, it took that long to get there. As it goes on, the world that's built, what Samantha Shannon does is fantastic. Her lyrical way of writing, the eloquence, her language, the way she puts it on the page is really what captured me with it. And even Tolkien and George, while they have their huge fans and obviously their universe that they've built, they don't have that. They have a lot of description. It feels like an essay of why this world is the way it is. Why when they've tripped over the cliff they found mushrooms. It's because that specific place in that corner of the exact part of the world is where the mushroom grows. Whereas Samantha Shannon doesn't bog you down with that shit. Comparing books to books has always been a contentious part, and especially dealing in the book industry, we have to do it. But I can see why it's an issue. Newspaper reviews are done for money. Just take them with a little bit of a grain of salt, guys. Salt Bay's in here like this. Review 3, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. OMG, I am so done with this book. I should have been done with it 500 pages ago. I probably wouldn't have hated it so much if I had just given up instead of pushing my way through. But after having read 800 plus pages, I am much more resentful towards this book for not being good. Boring, long and drawn out, underdeveloped, flat characters, anticlimactic, simple and trying to trick you to think it's epic by being so freaking long. Filler, filler, filler. Look, to have a standalone fantasy book, or originally a standalone fantasy book, that builds its own universe, that can come to a beginning, middle, end, establish its magic, establish its universe, go through all of it, you need to have that. Especially if you want to possibly continue it on, but you're not sure, because you're not sure how it's going to be received. Obviously, Samantha Shannon has the Bone Season series, which I haven't even read. I need to read it now, because I love her writing. For her to then turn around and do a standalone, which was originally promised as a series, then was a standalone, and is now going to be a series, she was hesitant in her writing. I will defend that she didn't put everything on the page that she probably could have, and that her editors probably curated the shit out of what she ended up giving. Because, yes, there is a bit of filler, but there is so much of it that wouldn't make sense without it. The problem with it is there's so many things I would say, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the goddamn book. I'm gonna leave that one. Alright, last review for this one. This book in a nutshell. Dot points. Boring, overlong, flat characters, uninteresting point of views, so slow. Practically no dragons. They make 5 pages long appearances and then nothing. The plot just doesn't move forward. You could summarize the first 400 pages in half of it. Too much told, too little shown, flat and out of the blue romance, Deus Ex Machina every time a character needs to lift from one country to another. I put it down at page 440. I could probably go on and skim read it, but I just don't care. Yikes. So, if the first 400 pages could have been summarized in half, but then you've only hit halfway and not continued. Okay. Alright. But my favorite part of this review is the practically no dragons. Your review is essentially cool story, bro, needs more dragons. And you quit before the dragons show up. Anyway, pages insert. A lot of reviews are saying the characters fell flat and people were pissed it was compared to Tolkien because they don't believe it did it or it was just generic as fuck. Comparing it to Tolkien is wrong. It doesn't have an encyclopedic world built around it because that's what Tolkien did. Tolkien got mad at C.S. Lewis because he didn't explain the Chronicles of Narnia well enough. There wasn't enough detail. There wasn't enough backtracking. There wasn't enough solidification of the universe. And they were best friends. And Tolkien used to get so mad at him because when he originally wrote The Hobbit, his son got mad at him if he forgot details from the night before because he was just telling it as a spoken story. And so he started writing it down because his son was an asshole. And that's why we have an encyclopedic universe that is Lord of the Rings. Because Middle-earth was built by a questioning 8-year-old that always asked Why? Then he started doing it to everyone else because it turns out it runs in the family. Okay, you can't compare it to Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings is an essence of its own. But like, do you compare Lord of the Rings to Dungeons & Dragons? To nitpick and compare is just a major issue in itself. Fantasy builds its own universe around the way it wants to capture that magic. And fantasy shouldn't be compared to each other because it's their own universe. You can't compare a universe to another. Even a multiverse where I exist and am agreeing with all of these 1-star reviews is a different universe. Anyway, on to my next review page. So moving on to the next set of reviews is Clara and the Sun. I absolutely love this book. I wasn't much for literary fiction. Didn't really jump into it very often. Read a lot of fantasy, read a lot of sci-fi. Didn't jump much into the literary universe. Didn't really care for it. Read this, ended up moving on from this to a lot of literary fiction for a very long time because it changed my view. Obviously, I'm not the best in regards to discussing literary fiction and what is considered good, what is considered bad. But I think it was absolutely amazing, bringing in just that neutrality of AI to be the grasp of human emotion. The fact that it's viewing from a third party and they have no attachment to everything, or their attachment is literally due to their programming, was really interesting for me. I completely understand it's not for everybody. And this has turned from 1-star reviews to video essays with Ash. Clara and the Sun, 263,000 reviews on Goodreads. 1% of them are 1-star reviews, which is 3,530 to be exact. Thank you for that information page. One of the worst editing jobs I have seen. Overall, Clara and the Sun would have been better off as a short story. And I'm angry. I'm angry because Ishiguro can write, but this book didn't reflect that. The editor should have been given better review notes and cleaned up this book before publication. Ishiguro has proven that he is a great writer. He has the writing chops, so this book is such a tragedy. Did this person read a proof? Can you quickly double check whether this was a review of a proof copy or whether this was a fully published review? Yeah, that seems really weird. I didn't notice any editing mistakes. It was written well enough that it didn't show, like, whether the editing job in the UK and US was different, because it just seems...
No, it doesn't say anything.
Doesn't say anything.
The review was written in...
2023?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this book could have been great, but it was boring and slow. It didn't even have chapters, it had parts. On the audiobook, each of these parts was between 1 to 2 hours long. The prose was horrible. It was very staccato because it was supposed to sound like a robot. I did this, I did this, I did this.
So that's important.
I'm reading, Baba!
Sorry, coming back after Paige looked at the review, it looked like they actually went through the audiobook. Now, I don't know if you guys listened to, or anyone's listened to the audiobook, but the woman's voice who is actually reading the book is very much attempting to be as robotic as possible because it is narrated from Clara's perspective. It is told as if, or she speaks it as if it is an autonomous brain that is just going, this is what I've done, this is what I remember, this is my day-to-day life. It's not like a human with emotion who is capable of thinking and feeling. I can understand that that doesn't come across well to everybody, but I feel like they missed the point, like, entirely. Next review. Number 2, wearing sunglasses for this review because I am anti-sun and anti-Clara. I wish I had quotes to put at the front of this review, but nothing remarkable grasped my attention long enough to want to highlight it. I have such a strong dislike of this novel. I will not be caring about the spoilers in my review. Read at your own discretion. And then obviously they went further from there. Solid roast. I gotta give them that, solid roast. With the wearing sunglasses for the review. Good opener. Would convince me to read their review. Number 3. This is probably the worst book I've ever read. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. It's always fascinating when celebrated authors take an absolute dump and everyone has to figure out what to do about it. Do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Do we just assume that in their towering genius they must be doing something amazing? Wow, this is formatted so bad. Do we just assume that in their towering genius they must be doing something amazing that we're not picking up on? It's impossible to find a bad review of Clara and the Sun which feels like a publishing industry conspiracy or coordinated gaslighting. I really hope that was the whole review. Like,
that one I don't think so.
it just seems like I'm putting this 1 star up because I'm making sure to even it out.
There's 3 more paragraphs.
Okay, there's more to it.
Oh, that's so cute!
Oh!
I hope Ishiguro doesn't read Goodreads reviews. He doesn't need this type of negativity in his life, and I hope he's relaxing on a beach somewhere, enjoying a gentle old age after a lifetime of accolades. But I probably won't read any more of his books. That's the ending to that one.
Oh! Oh! Okay. Look, I haven't read his other work, and it might be... It could be significantly better. It might not be my cup of tea. Because I am a science fiction reader, this came across as great. I do feel like a lot of literary fiction readers can't do sci-fi. I've dealt with this in my store. I've recommended this book to people and they've turned around and told me it was trash because they couldn't relate to the narrator. Well, that's because it's a robot. It's very hard to relate to a robot that doesn't exist.
You're also autistic.
I can relate to a robot. Yeah. Yeah, bitch.
I just had that thought and I was like, oh.
Why are you gonna call me out like this on film?
Sorry, that was... This is gonna be fun to edit.
I've been called out.
So hard. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Alright, review number 4. This really wasn't it. I'm starting to get annoyed by these novels written by established writers that are sold as incisive looks at our modern world, when really they're just a badly written robot story. Like, bestie, the most pressing issue about technology right now isn't robot friends, and even if it is, was this...
Sorry.
Like... You gotta review a book, but you can't even fucking write correctly? Was this territory has already been covered by countless books and films, and this one doesn't add anything to the equation. What are you expecting? Do you need to read I, Robot again and then have it be profoundly different? Do you need to read fucking the Murderbot trilogy and have it be emotionally attaching? What are you looking for from this book? Number 5. So, Mr. Ishiguro had been watching too many series of Westworld. Westworld, the kindergarten edition. A heavy read, a plod, a yawn, a travesty, my senses all beneath the lotus blossom. Fucking Mr. Poet, what... why don't you go off and write your own book? Next. Anyway. Why do I feel as if I need to write this review as if I was a robot? Clara was so flat and she was supposed to be such a wonderful AF. Unofficial friend, but wonderful as fuck. Good grief. With all of these 4 and 5 star reviews, I'm wondering if we even read the same book. I had to force myself to finish the book. What a disappointment. You meant to read the book as if you're reading from a robot's perspective. Point? Short summary.
Robot, son, AI, friend, son, 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 sick, son, 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 kid, son, son, sick kid, son, 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 son.
Son. They're not wrong. I hate it when they roast my book and they're correct. Next review. I simply didn't get what the message this book tried to say, and I find it very strange. The only part I liked is what was happening in the store. The rest, not sure I have much to say. The only part they liked was part 1? It's part 1! Also, I am confused which category this book belongs to. Artificial intelligence we already have, and robots are doing some jobs human did in the past. Some words incline to dystopia, like lifted, high ranking, but in my opinion, this book is neither. All I can say is, do not waste your time, but it's based in a near future. Like, near future. It's futuristic, but not enough to be separated from the world we currently live in. Yes, we have artificial intelligence currently doing things, but if you ask Chat API to say exactly what you want it to, it will regurgitate exactly what you ask it to regurgitate at you. You can create an echo chamber with AI. Clara does have a personality, but it's so rudimentarily set in the fact that she doesn't realize she has a personality. She's one of the only bots that does, and it's considered an error in her programming. And her having any form of intelligence that she is currently displaying, her grasp on human emotion that she is currently seeing and trying to develop towards and help and do her thing with throughout the book, is just, like, it's considered a flaw. It's when it looks at every other model that's around it. She's not meant to have this functionality. She's not meant to be observant. She's not meant to record this data. This data is meant to stay and be erased. She's meant to be a friend every single day. She's not meant to be the concerned friend. She's not meant to be the one that asks the parent if they're okay, because the parent's dealing with a lot of shit, and she's meant to be the friend to the child. This is gaps in her programming that she has filled in herself, and it's the way that software with a learning capability is able to fill in its own gaps, and why half of the artificial intelligence projects that have started its own circular learning have been shut down because we don't know how to deal with it.
Sorry about that. Battery died.
Equivalent to watching paint dry on the wall. Must have dried it with the sun. Next review. Just no. Awful. No real plot. No actual sci-fi world building. It was never pitched as a sci-fi. People don't realize how writing works. And perspective works. Do they? Anywho. This is where it gets rough. Because I love this book. With a fiery passion. I will get mad. Maybe the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I own like, what, 4? I only own 4 versions? I guess I do only own 4. I need to get the American covers. That's what I'm missing. I only have the UK covers. But I love this. It is my baby. Still waiting. Down to a 1-star review because I'm still waiting. Me. 885,000 ratings on Goodreads, and 1% is 1 star. So that's just shy of 14,000 reviews, which is a lot when you think about it, but compared to 885,000 ratings, that's an astronomical amount of higher ratings. Jesus Christ.
What?
That one review is basically this whole page. Oh wait, no, you did skip large sections. You've annotated that in here. Jesus. I'm sorry, Mr. Rothfuss. For reals. Actually sorry. Honestly, I tried giving your book 2 stars out of pity, since I wanted to like it, and I'd feel bad about giving it 1 star and dragging down your average rating. Though you don't appear to need my pity. Your book has the highest average GR rating, 4.49, of any book I've read.
It's now a 4.52.
I finally dropped my rating down to 1 star because it's just a steaming pile of crap, and I couldn't take the embarrassment of having posted a 2-star rating on something so awful. Proceeds with amazingly in-depth review with quotes. Ouch. I'm gonna have to go back and read this in my own time so we don't have more. Like, this doesn't end up being a 7-hour review. Or a 7-hour video for Paige to edit. Sorry, Paige. Okay, next review. Okay. Wow, let's back the hell up here. How is this so highly rated? Are those genre establishment reviewers who are thrashing about in... Oh god. Oh god. This person pulled out a fucking thesaurus to write this review. Like, of all the words they could have used throughout this, why do these high fantasy disappointments keep on keeping on? I'm skipping half of the really big words because there is no point to them, and this person is trying to flex their vocabulary. Whose brilliant idea was it to throw around the GRM and Harry Potter comparisons, thereby actually getting me to waste my pennies on this book when the money could have been better spent, I don't know, on some new dish sponges, or perhaps bundled together into a lump sum donation to the Feminist Fantasy Writer Foundation. And for God's sake, why do male fantasy writers always write about do-everything, know-it-all male heroes who vanquish dragons, defeat their conniving rivals, strangle angels, and literally walk through fires carrying weeping females over their shoulders like sacks of potatoes? Okay, now that's a direct quote. He walks through a fire, guys, with a girl slung over his shoulders like Jesus Christ or something. What the fuck? For one, the protagonist is an insufferable little shit. Yes, they are. You're not meant to like, quote, you're not meant to like him. He has established that in the first chapter before his story begins. This is my story, this is exactly as it is. The legends have been told wrong. You're not meant to like me. I am not a hero, I am not a savior. That's a line from a song, but I digress. A moment of wondering silence for how this drivel actually managed to avoid excision via enraged editor. Not to go on an embittered, long-winding rant or anything, apparently large sections have already been skipped by page. Too late. Oh, yeah, brackets. Too late for that. This book represents pretty much everything I hate about high fantasy. The utter paucity of... You could have said there's a lack of strong female characters. You didn't have to fucking waste the language on it. You're flexing your vocabulary for the wrong reasons. The cardboard villainy of the baddie. The lack of real dimension besides character tightness. The never-ending level up of powers. Have you ever watched anime? Have you ever read a manga? Shonen Jump is literally derived from the power of friendship. And oh no, the enemy's more powerful than my max level. The power of friendship will level me up again. Fuck. It's almost like it's a genre type. And always has been. Forever. The chosen one syndrome is not a new thing. And it happens in fantasy the most. Yes. This happens to be one fantasy of a million that do it. But it happens all the time. Don't act like this is the first one where it's done it. The protagonist who can do no wrong. He constantly does wrong. It's explicitly stated throughout. He makes the wrong choices. He fucks up, and that's the reason why his mentor leaves. He does wrong so often. The frankly boring and sometimes hair-raisingly cliche use of language, also the lack of females. Yeah, look, I'm gonna go ahead and go yes, there is a lack of female characters. But would you be happier if, because he's not comfortable writing from a female perspective, if all of the female characters he put in there were two-dimensional and he couldn't actually portray them properly? Would you be happier if there were 68 female characters alongside the 3 well-written male characters, but the 68 female characters were piss poor? I find it difficult, not just because I'm mildly autistic, but I find it hard to portray a female accurately, so I won't put them in it because I feel like I'm not giving them a genuine voice. What if it turns out the underlying characteristic of his character is he's fucking afraid of females? Like, he doesn't know how to deal with them, so he literally goes through his day-to-day avoiding them, but because it's a repressed trauma of him being unable to relate or deal with it, he doesn't put it on the page, he keeps it repressed. These things are possibilities. I'm not sure if you've read the second book, like where to go from here with your opinion. I feel like I'm coming across as a dick because I'm defending him being misogynistic. But he's not being, to me, he's not being misogynistic. He's unable to give an accurate voice. Okay, the last sentence of this whole same review is just I think this guy needs to sit at the feet of Joss Whedon or George R. Martin and learn something worthwhile. Which goes to show most of the fantasy that you've probably been dealing with has been through television. In which case they have creative directors who step in and go, yeah, maybe you should edit this. Like Game of Thrones.
The books won't teach you nothing about how to write women unless you want to describe their tits.
Whereas the TV show was completely different.
Ah, yeah.
Where, like, Daenerys is a strong female character.
Oh, that's nice.
Cersei is the most heartless bitch, but she is such a strong female lead. But the books don't portray them that way.
No.
I'm gonna ask if Joss Whedon's actually written books, because...
I'm sure he's written stuff, but it's like, yeah, it's comic.
Yeah, so it's...
based off his TV shows.
Yeah. Anyway, look, in summary, I'm not trying to be anti-feminist. I'm not trying to defend Patrick's misogyny. It's more the fact that I'm trying to give it a perspective from a male, that this is how it comes across to me, and I don't think it's the way he's writing is in a negative light towards female. It's just, it's not in his experience. Anyway, let's knock through a couple more reviews, because this has been a very long-winded essay just for Pat, and I've been through 2 reviews. I'll pick some really short ones here instead. That way we're not taking too much longer with this. I really, really wish I could give this negative stars. Is tagged on this person's shelf of shame. This same shelf that also has Twilight and Succubus Heat on it. Fuck is Succubus Heat? Is that like a monster smut novel?
It's Georgia Kincaid. I think it's a paranormal romance.
That's an odd one. Okay, this review said that while it was a 1-star review, it did have quite an extensive list of good stuff that was in the book. But on to the bad stuff. The gaudy plastic star on the top of this fake Christmas tree of list of grievances is Quoth himself. It would be an understatement to say that I did not like his character. I found him unbelievable and derivative and written. He's telling his story to be written. It's the whole premise of the book. Come on! I felt no emotional investment in him. At no point in the story did I worry he would make it out okay. It's because he's telling his story. Like, obviously... The 90% of the book is flashback. The other half is him, okay, let's take a break so I can go take a piss. Now we're back to do more flashback. It's like watching an episode of Lost. At no point did he surprise me. One of my biggest problems with Quoth was his age. He did not sound or act like a believable child, with the exception of Tarbian, as mentioned. Moreover, he had to be a genius. Why? I am genuinely asking this. Ever thought that maybe he's autistic? Like, this is Patrick portraying what it was like to grow up as an autistic child that constantly asked why, but absorbed all of that knowledge. I was going to call this category portrayal of women, but women are really not a part of the story. Person got more disgusted as they were writing a review, so they kept downgrading their stars as they went on with their 800,000 page essay. Stopped on page 240. This is wish fulfillment fantasy with an omnicompetent teen protagonist around whom the world seems to revolve. I decided I couldn't go any further after reading a scene in which he takes a college entrance exam at age 15. Not only does he impress the pants, figuratively, off of his examiners, even though it's been 3 years since he studied any of the material, the examiners even decide to give him the first full scholarship in the history of the university because he is just that special. You're acting like Chosen One fantasies are not fucking the bread and butter as far as the fantasy genre. Every fucking fantasy ever is a Chosen One fucking fantasy.
Aragon. Fucking, even Lord of the Rings was a Chosen One fantasy by the end of it. Frodo was chosen because hobbits were resistant to the magic the ring brought. Aragorn was chosen because he was the blood of Elrondil. Fucking Gimli was chosen because he was descendant from the hobbits of fucking...
Meh. Twilight for boys! Twilight for boys! Accurate though.
It was on the same shelf.
Yeah, Twilight for boys. You know what? I agree. Twilight for boys. I'm gonna write that on the review card I put at my work. 5 stars. Twilight for boys. I don't know how to begin this review. I'm just gonna read the first couple of sentences. I'm a stuntman, so my opinion on the book doesn't mean anything. It's a great way of starting. I don't see why it's relevant. But okay, but if you name your book Fart, and there's no farting, or real discussion of farts, that's -1 star. I came for the high fantasy, I got a bunch of lute playing. Now I will admit, the other way I would describe this apart from Twilight for boys is Twilight for musician, because the lyrical nature of Pat's writing, because it is almost written like a song. He uses just little nuances that give it the thread of timing with music. It's really subtle, but it's brilliantly done. The way the music scenes are done, I feel like Pat is a repressed musician somewhere in a previous life. But anyway, I got a bunch of lute playing by the greatest lute playing savant child prodigy in history, which is like the opposite of high fantasy. That's like low mediocrity. That's like bad Star Trek writing. No, it's not. You seen the early sections of fucking Star Trek? It's horrible. I guess there's a lot of savant child prodigy lute players who connected to this one. Ha! I wasn't a child savant lute player. They're like, damn, that's just like me! I also outsmarted an entire university entrance exam at the age of 10 and then became a hot rock star at the local pub. So relatable! Enough of that review. There was one line in this that made me really, kind of makes me uncomfortable. It's 58 pages in the book before a woman speaks.
But I swear his mum speaks beforehand. Oh shit. Okay, I'm at 45. Oh shit, I'm at 49. No. Oh god, we're into the first flashback. And it's page 54. Oh my god, they're right. No, Trip doesn't even talk there.
I was right, the mother does speak first. But it's on page 58. Fuck. I'm not gonna say that the female characters are well represented in it, because they're clearly not. Like, I'd like to see how long it took Robert Jordan to actually fucking bring a storyline into the world of time. Oh wait, 5 books. I'm sorry, I trashed Robert Jordan because I really didn't like his writing style. It's the same as people not liking the books that I'm reading out and I'm defending, or trying to, or failing at. This book made me very emotional. I ran on a lot of points. I tried to stick to my guns. I may have failed in a lot of circumstances of trying to get my point across. But it just goes to show really how every individual looks at a book. And what can be the most magical thing to you can be the worst thing in the world to someone else. Or what you've absolutely despised could be embraced by someone wholeheartedly. It's just a matter of what your lot is in life, the perspective in which you come from, the mindset you go in when reading a book. Things get hyped, and if you go in with a sense of wonder, or go in with that sense that this is going to be the next big thing, and that falls flat, it's not always the book that you're going to be downgrading. You're going to be downgrading someone else's opinion. You're going to take off a star because someone told you it was good, but it wasn't. In conclusion, love what you love, hate what you hate. You do you, boo. Like, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I don't want to say the good old saying of, opinions are like assholes. Just because you have one, don't put it in my face. Let us know in the comments if you think any of my opinions are trash, or what you think Did you like those books? Did you hate them? Or have you read any 1-star reviews of your favorite books, and what did you think of how they came across? If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye!